Yep.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's call. My name is Janene Babauskis, and tonight is all about sharing a breakthrough that can change your life. ASEA products have certainly provided those solutions for me that added quality to my life. I was approaching 60, and what I noticed was things weren't working and healing like they did when I was younger. And my background, I'm a health practitioner, and I had all the solutions, but what I discovered was those solutions, I wasn't getting 100% result anymore, and I didn't know why. I didn't understand it, but I kind of got something was missing. So when I was introduced to these redox signaling molecules over 2 to 6 weeks, lots of things healed in my body that weren't healing, and things that I didn't expect to heal and rectify did. So I'm truly grateful to Cheryl Penrose, who reached out and introduced me to these redox signaling molecules. It's certainly changed my life, not only in my health, but also my financial well-being as well. So tonight we have a special guest with us who will be sharing her redox experience. But before we get started, I invite you to think about the following questions. Do you have a health challenge? Or perhaps you know somebody with a health challenge that needs help. Would you like to reduce the visible signs of aging? Or do you want more energy to do what you love? I mean, are you finding at the end of the day you're just heading for the couch instead of doing those things that you love to do at the end of the day? Are you looking for improved athletic or physical performance? Or maybe you want time or money freedom for a better lifestyle. Now, to really live well, we all need 2 basic things, and that is a body that can do whatever you ask it to do, and enough money for the freedom to make choices in life. Now, to have that body or well-being, you might be exercising, or you might have changed or modified your diet. You might be taking nutritionals. You might be doing everything you can think of, or you might not be doing any of that at all. Now, frustratingly, no matter what you do, as you age, your cells respond less and less effectively to all of these strategies. Your cells naturally begin to break down, producing less energy, taking longer to repair, and sometimes not repairing at all. But what if your cells could be just more efficient? Your exercise, your nutrition, your supplementation, and everything else that you did could be more effective. You could be healthier longer with less effort. How would that be? Now, several years ago, scientists made a groundbreaking discovery. They identified molecules that your body produces inside every cell that help your cells repair and regenerate. Now, once discovered, there was years of research and development that went into figuring out how to stabilize these molecules outside of the body so that they could be used to top up your redox levels, which deplete through the decades. The result is a molecular technology that helps your cells function better. And guess what? When your cells function better, you feel better, you look better, because everything works better. So that means any steps you're taking to improve your health become more effective. Nutritional supplementation work better. You've got the energy to do all those things you want to do. You sleep better. Naturally, life becomes better. So now let's hear from our special guest, Bev Napier, on her redox experience. So Bev, welcome to the call, and I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself if that's possible. If not, I can unmute you. Yep, do you need help there? There you go, you're unmuted.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us, Bev. You're a rock star, you are. So, and tonight is about joining us and sharing with us your redox experience. So can you just give us it's a big background to Bev's health here. So I'm just going to ask you to just give us a snapshot of those health challenges that you've had for the past 30 years And during those decades, other health challenges which added to your suffering?
Well, basically for 30 years or more, I had suffered with muscular pain and stiffness throughout my whole body, severe back pain, which started when I was a teenager, deterioration of cartilage tissues throughout my spine, my neck, my shoulders, my hips and my knees. Plus I had bone pain in both legs towards the end of it too. Chronic fatigue, that was no joke. Depression a lot of the times. Damaged nerve endings in both feet, caused by plantar fasciitis, which I had for about 4 years, plus various other autoimmune disorders, chronic digestive disorder, and allergy issues which got worse over the decades. Was no joke.
No joke. All right, so we're going to discover in a minute what life was like for you with that. But what was interesting for me, Bev, when I had the pleasure of meeting you earlier this year, you were vibrant, you were well, and you were on your way home from a 3-week road trip with Gus, your husband. So I was incredibly moved when you shared your story with me, as to me it was unimaginable what sort of suffering you had been through. So tell us what your daily life was like for you prior to starting Eurocea. So how did all that manifest in life every day for you?
I hope everybody realises I've got notes, so forgive me if I have to refer to my notes. Basically, the pain throughout my whole body was so debilitating towards prior to starting ASEA that I could hardly walk. I couldn't attend to basic daily duties like even doing the housework. Some days I couldn't walk to the letterbox, the pain was so severe. I couldn't go out or socialise unless I could sit the whole time, and then I could only stay for probably about 2 hours. To manage the discomfort, I was prescribed high doses of opiate-based pain relief, plus a smorgasbord of other drugs which had terrible side effects. Actually, I felt like a zombie. I had no purpose in life except to get through the day and the next day and the next day, and get up and deal with the same discomfort over again. I shut myself off from people towards the end because people didn't want to know me because I was just miserable, including my own family.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. And how could you be anything else but miserable? Like, you just can't even imagine. But then to top that off, in 2017, you were diagnosed that you needed a double hip replacement, as both of your hips were basically bone on bone.
Yep. So basically my whole life consisted at that time of medical appointments from one specialist to another.
Yep. Now, prior to developing these conditions, what were the activities that you loved to do? This is, going back 30 years ago. What was life like for you then?
Well, throughout those 30 years, it progressively got worse, as you can appreciate. But I've always been an active person. I love bushwalking. I love gardening. I used to go 3 nights a week. I used to go ballroom dancing. I worked full time in my vocation I love doing, and I worked right up until the end of 2016 with great difficulty towards the end. Yeah, so I love being very active.
Yeah, you're generally a really active person and you loved life.
Yeah. And so when I had to give up all those activities that I loved, I felt like basically crap. And I often was very depressed about it. And all of these activities became a thing of the past. And most days I could only walk from one chair to another. It was just terrible.
So when did your health and life turn around, Bev? Tell us about that.
that was just amazing. In early March 2018, an old friend called Wendy Mayton contacted me by mistake.
There's no mistakes.
She was a client of mine when I was working.
Yep.
And so after I told her about my current state of health, she introduced me to redox signalling molecules. Once my products arrived, I was pretty focused, which I do that. So I focused on applying the gel 3 or 4 times a day to the hip areas, my lower back, plus my neck, where I'd had an old injury from a car accident way back in 1973. I started drinking the molecules and building up to 60 mils twice a day over the first week. And 3 days after I started the molecules, I clearly remember waking up this one morning and saying to my husband, wow, I can actually think.
Yep.
The brain fog felt like it had lifted.
Wow.
3 weeks later, after starting the products, I was feeling somewhat better. Hang on, I've lost my place. So less discomfort, an increase in energy, and a little bit more enthusiasm to do things than previous. That was in just 3 weeks. So I stopped taking the opiate-based medication, reducing it from 70 milligrams a day, which is a very high dose, down to 10 milligrams a day. And I knew this could only be from using the molecules. It couldn't have been anything else.
How long had you been on those opiate-based drugs?
Probably about 6 months.
Okay, yep.
Plus a whole myriad of other drugs prior to that as well.
Yeah.
So I stopped taking the opiate-based medication, reducing it from 70 milligrams to 10, knowing it was just the molecules. And I also, at the same time, I added another dose of the liquid, so that now I was taking 60 mils 3 times a day.
Yep.
Because I just felt it was really working.
You had the evidence, that's for sure.
Yeah. So the discomfort and the aches down my legs subsided, and I was able to get out in the garden and enjoy a bit of time there, plus able to move around and do a few more things around home. This is prior to surgery, of course.
Yes, yep. So this is not very long on the molecules at all.
No.
Now, then you were scheduled for surgery in July 2018 because they were going to do your right hip replacement. So just share with us how you prepared for this surgery with the molecules, using the molecules.
Yeah. So 1 month prior to the surgery, I increased the ASEA drink to 120 mils twice a day. So I was actually inspired by seeing Jeanette McDonald's story in her preparation for her operation.
Yes.
And 1 week prior to the surgery, I increased my dose to 60 mils a day.
Yep, so that was 360 mils daily. That was a week prior to the surgery.
Yes.
Awesome. So then you've had the surgery. What was your dosage post-surgery? And tell us a bit about your recovery from that surgery, because that was so interesting what you shared with me.
Well, I was actually in hospital a week, and while I was there, as soon as I could, I started taking 120 mils twice a day.
Yep.
And also rubbing the gel wherever I could, where I didn't have dressing and stuff. Just because I knew that the gel was the magic stuff.
Yeah.
And the nurses in the hospital said, Bev, you are astonishing. I can't believe how quickly you're recovering. I've never seen anyone recover from the surgery you've had like this.
Incredible.
That made me smile.
Absolutely.
And while I was in hospital, it was a bit of a sheer determination, because it also hurt very much. But I'd get up out of the chair or the bed every hour, and I'd have the wheelie walker. I had a big walking frame, and I would walk the corridor of the hospital and then go back and sit down again.
With a walking frame every hour?
Every hour during the day, yeah.
Wow. Incredible. I bet you there weren't too many out there with you having a chat with their frame.
No, I couldn't wait to get home, actually.
So now this was interesting. When you came home for hospital, you were assigned home help for 3 months, but you sacked them after 3 weeks. Why did you do that?
Well, again, I was back walking the dog slowly with a wheelie walker 1 week after I got home from hospital.
Amazing.
3 weeks in, after getting out of hospital, I was well enough and moving around, quite well to manage most of my home maintenance. Okay, it was still a bit sore, but, I was, it was nothing like it had been. At my post-surgery checkup 6 weeks later after the operation, I walked in with no walking aids at all. I'd already given all of them back.
Yep.
I was now walking the dog around the block each day, which is only small. It's not a big block.
Yeah, but we're only 6 weeks after your surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The doctor remarked, when I went for my checkup, the doctor remarked how well I was recovering. And that day I met a lady in the waiting room who was also operated on the same day as me. And she was still walking with a walking frame, and I told her that the only thing I'd done different was redox signalling molecules.
Yep.
I couldn't help myself. I had to say that to her.
Of course you did.
And I have since maintained 120 mils twice a day post-surgery for the rest of this the year.
Yep.
Plus twice daily application of Renew 28. And sometimes I'll put it on 3 times in 5 minutes if I've overdone things.
Exactly. I do that as well. And
yeah.
Exactly. That's what life's like when you got redox. You go hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And truly, after the surgery on my right hip, I noticed that the discomfort in my left hip subsided fairly quickly. And in January this year, that's 2019, I went for my 6 months checkup for my hip surgery, and also to discuss the proposed left hip replacement.
Yeah, yep.
Because at the time, I begged the doctors to operate on both at the same time because I was in so much agony. Yep. And they said, no, we can't do that. So with that, the specialist asked me to walk down the corridor and back, which I did. And when I told him I had no pain, no discomfort at all, he cancelled my surgery.
That's amazing, because you were diagnosed in 2018 that you needed both hips done, and you're in so much discomfort. You were begging the doctor to do both at once to see if you get it over with. And there you are a few months later, or not much later, 6 months, and you don't even need that left hip replacement.
No.
Extraordinary.
No, I'm pretty happy about it.
You ought to be. You smile every time I see you. No wonder. It's pretty amazing. You've got lots to smile about, Bev.
And the other thing is too, I no longer take any pain relief on a regular basis. I just occasionally might take Panadol, and that's about it.
Yep. So that's lower back, no discomfort there, and basically in the hip side. Incredible. And there's a lot of activities you do now, so I want to talk to you in a minute about that as well. So Bev, what is life like for you now that you've restored your health? Tell us, what do you do in a day? Well,
this afternoon I took my little dog and I went for about a 3-kilometre walk.
Yep.
Which I do probably 2 to 3 days a week.
Yep. Awesome.
And the other days I, walk around a few blocks around town because Banjo is very insistent I have to go too.
Yep.
And plus I ride my push bike, which I've mounted on a stand there he is.
There he is in the background, the little man.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've mounted my push bike on a stand in the garage, and I do pumps out there for cardiac exercise as well, because I know that's important at my age.
How long do you ride the bike for?
I'll probably, at least 15 minutes, a real workout.
You're an inspiration. I'm going to drag my bike out.
And how is life like for us? It's great. My husband and I have been on several road trips, one to Queensland or to Tasmania, Victoria, and most of that, often they're 3 weeks at a time.
Yep.
We're now able to go and visit our grandchildren, which is great, because I couldn't do that prior to the operation.
No.
Of course, I can get out in the garden, and I can socialise whenever I want to these days. I'm happy. I'm loving life. And I can take on new projects, and one of those is a seer, of course.
Of course. Yep. You're out there sharing the molecules. It's beautiful to see.
And plus, the other thing I guess I have to say is my husband's pretty stoked because I've got my mojo back.
Awesome. There you go, Gus.
People say I'm a cradle snatcher.
Yeah, I hope you're taking plenty of Redox. So, Bev, what's your maintenance dosage now?
Look, I still continue taking 120 mils twice a day. Sometimes it's only 3 times a day, but usually it's 4 cups a day. So, yeah.
Yep, 3 or 4 cups a day,
Yes.
and depending on your day and how you're feeling and what you're doing. Yeah.
And just a little side issue. I just want to tell, this is really great. I'm a very good friend in Queensland, and recently I went to visit her and hadn't seen her for probably a couple of years. And I was talking to her on the phone after we got home, and she said her husband, she told her husband that she saw Bev today and I looked 10 years younger. And her husband said to her, if it's that good, you better get some. So since then, I've joined up Val, and she's now started her Redox journey too.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, why wouldn't you when you see how amazing you look? Bev, can I ask how old you are, darling?
Well, I'm almost 71 now.
You look amazing. Yeah, and for all of you on the call, I met Bev and Gus, I think it was January or February, we met for breakfast. They were passing through Melbourne, and I tell you what, I mean, I didn't know Bev's story then, and that's why, I was so shocked when Bev shared it with me, because I just really got how vibrant and beautifully, you moved around, and you're just amazing. Such an inspiration.
Thank you. And I also just want to say thank you to my darling husband.
Yes.
Because, he was very enduring and put up with a lot during the time before all this happened.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty miserable, and I probably made him miserable a lot too.
Nice. Yeah.
And also just the fact that he's been prepared to accept that I've changed my diet quite a lot.
Yes.
I try very hard to avoid eating grains these days, so no bread, no carbs much.
Yep.
Lots and lots of vegetables, and raw if possible.
Yes.
And yeah, that's made a big difference too to my problem. Yeah.
That's the interesting thing I notice with some people. When they start to get vibrancy and well-being back, they really start to take notice of other things that they could be doing to support their well-being. Like, the motivation is there to do it, and the drive. Yeah.
Yes, well, probably in the past too, I had a lot of food allergies, and I was aware of them, but I was like naughty. Whereas these days I'm more committed to, no, I don't have it. Oops,
we've just frozen. Yes. So Bev, I don't remember if you touched on it, but you might have. I know you had a lot of digestive disorder too during that 30 years. How long was it when you started on the Redox before you noticed a shift in that as well? You might
Not long. Not long at all. Not long. Probably only a couple of weeks.
Yeah. See, those things, they shift pretty fast, I've noticed for people. Yeah. Incredible.
I'd had that irritable problem for years.
That kind of itis thing in the bowel and inflammation in the bowel. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What an inspiration. You're incredible. And Bev, lots of people have added some things to the chat box. I'm just going to go through those and have a look. And then I'm just going to do a disclaimer, and then I'm going to invite our, the people who are on tonight to ask you any questions they may have. So just stand by for a sec. Oops, that's interesting. Yep, Wendy Matten. Wendy Matten's on. Yeah. So,
hi, Wendy.
Yeah, she's very happy to hear your story. Fabulous story. Well done, Bev. You're an inspiration. Thanks so much for sharing your story. Everybody needs to hear this. They certainly do. It's like where Bev said she was really inspired by Jeanette McDonald sharing her story, and people learn from you sharing. So that's why, I don't take it lightly that you've taken this on to be on tonight, and you're an incredible student. So, it really contributes to others. So thank you. Yep, keep shining. Life looks good because you took action. You really did. You embraced it like saying. Yeah, so lots of beautiful thank you here. And, great story there. So I'm just going to read the disclaimer, and that is, hang on a sec, I've got to find it. Here we go. So, at this time in our Redox talk, it's really important to acknowledge that ASEA products are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any condition. They simply empower cellular communication and hence cellular function. So I'd just like to open up the floor now, so to speak. And if anyone's got a question for Bev, just please unmute yourself and ask your question. That would be awesome. If you don't have questions, that's fine too, but usually there's some there. But Bev was very clear describing what her doses were along the way. So they may not have any questions for you, Bev, but yeah. Over to questions.
So,
No?
Bev, with your operation, with your hip replacement, how much medication did you need for the discomfort? Did you find you didn't take a lot after the operation, or?
I continued on just a mild dose of the opiate base for a short while after. It probably would have been maybe a month after, before I just totally stopped it altogether. But I was only taking like 2.5 milligrams a day.
So that was significantly less than what they would have expected you to need.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, as most people with that sort of situation, your Panadol is your first thing before you go to the stronger one. But I had a myriad of other things as well, and they're all gone too.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Yeah. Yes, I'm excited.
And me.
And Gus, of
And
course.
Gus too, of course, sorry.
Because my little short interview done with Janene when we had breakfast together is in the videos online.
Yes, on Renew with Redox. Yeah, we did Gus was telling me his story. I said, stop, we're going to stand up, we're going to record this. So thank you, Gus, for dancing with me with that. Yeah. Has anyone got any more questions for Bev? Incredible results here. Such an inspiration. So let me just finish off. So, for those of you who are guests here tonight, do talk to the person who invited you to tonight's presentation. As they'll be able to assist you in all the ways to get started and have your own Redox experience. So every Tuesday night we host a Redox talk. It's at the same time, and every week it's with a different guest. So please join us and invite others so they can also learn the endless possibilities with this breakthrough technology, and look at how they can change your health, your wealth, and your well-being. And, you know, there's something to learn from every different story or every result that we hear. Like, I learn something every time, you know, I hear through the generosity, really, of people dedicating their time and, you know, taking on what it takes to be able to share their story. So really appreciate that, Bev and Gus. You've been amazing to work with, and, you know, not just in your Redox story tonight, but in general. You've got an enthusiasm for life, and you truly are amazing. Thank you. Justin, is there anything you want to say before we finish off?
I just had a question for Bev. I popped it in the chat box. Bev, what was it like? Did you experience any detox effect or anything when you came off the opiates?
Remember that?
I don't recall anything specific, but I had already been on the molecules for quite a while before, prior to the operation, and I didn't actually stop taking those until after. So maybe, but no, nothing specific.
Okay, so great. So there are a few medications I think you said you sort of stopped. Did you notice any adverse effects or any, like, you know, detox from any of that, or was that actually pretty quite easy to just come off a lot of that?
It was probably a bit of a weaning process, you know. So the less the pain became, the less I took of them, and eventually I just said, that's it, not taking any more of them now. I've got to say, for anyone who has had to take those sort of medication, this was before Wendy actually called me, so before I ever knew anything about ASEA. I tried to reduce the dosage one day. I just decided, because they made me feel like a zombie, that I would not take this, what I called the bomb. I would just take a lower dose. And I actually had an emergency ambulance trip to hospital that night because I thought I was going to die. So I thought I'd had a heart attack or a stroke or something. And it turned out it was just opiate withdrawal.
Wow, that's incredible. So
it was very
before the
scary.
molecules, the withdrawal was like actually really bad, and
yeah,
afterwards it was sounds like it was pretty simple. Or it was a weaning process, but it wasn't a challenge.
No.
Yeah, no,
amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure there's a lot of people in that boat that will benefit from that. Thank you very much for sharing your story, Bev. It's phenomenal. I had no idea you'd been through this as well. So fantastic.
Yeah.
I just say, with the fright I got on the occasion that she did that, it really was quite frightening. So I'd have to say to anybody who's listening, don't, whatever you do, if you're on those sort of drugs, stop suddenly. Right? You must wean off with medical advice.
Yes, very good advice.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole weaning,
thank you so much.
The idea of weaning off it, is much more sensible. Good work, Gus. Thank you. Thanks, Bev. Great work, Janene. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Justin. Thank you all of you for, you know, dedicating and investing your time to be on the talks tonight, whether you're here, you know, supporting the talks, or whether you're a guest, or whether, you know, you're just learning, because there's always more to learn. So, be here next week, 7:30 same time, and we'll have another incredible experience for you all to hear. Thank you again, and good night, everybody. Thanks, Bev. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Hey, okay, I turned off.
Thanks, Wendy. You're amazing.